It was just something I loved was event planning and event production.
What school? What college?
I went to NYU, Stern Business School.
I know it.
I was born and raised in Rockaway, Queens, and went to Midwood High School.
Okay.
So, in college, I was throwing really large parties at some of the biggest nightclubs in the city. People like promoters, but we were more like the people running the entire place. So I had a place that was holding over 2,000 people that we were bringing a week. And before I was even allowed in, I was running the place, which was pretty funny. And from there, I got into concert production. I threw 50 Cent's first concert ever. I threw shows for Eminem, Ludacris, a bunch of other people in the hip hop industry. And one concert went really wrong where, there was a major fight and someone almost was killed. Luckily they weren't, everything was okay. But at 23 years old, I was planning on making like $1 million or losing everything I ever made. And unfortunately, it was the latter, where I lost everything everything I made up to that point. And I decided that I love the event industry, I love throwing parties, I love, just hospitality, but I don't like the all in, everything in one basket, kind of thing with concert production. Right. So I thought that bars and restaurants was a great way for me to stay in something that's a 365-day a year thing where, there's a hurricane or if there's a bad snowstorm, you might be closed for a few days, but at least you can open back up. Right. Fast forward to COVID, that obviously wasn't true anymore. But,
right.
So
I learned about the business and talk about a couple of things you did.
So in NYU, I basically learned the business by being at the bars and restaurants, by working under people I deem mentors, doing anything and everything, manual labor wise, organizing the liquor shelves, doing, making it more efficient, where you can organize everything better, you're ordering things, learning how to save money for them, learning how to do cost analysis. So it's physically working in the restaurants that gave me a passion for really wanting to be in it. Mm-hmm. So it didn't hurt that I was really good at marketing too, and figuring out how to bring a ton of people. So I kind of made my own, way.
Yeah. So yeah. When you get to marketing, you'll understand the importance of marketing in your concept.
Yeah, you could be the best at operations, but if you have a restaurant of 0 people,
you can have the best food in the world too, right?
But the opposite is you can be the worst operator, and if your place is packed, you're okay. Right. So marketing is more important for temporarily than operations, but you gotta do both.
So talk a little bit about you working your way up the ranks of whatever entity you were at, and then what got you to your first entity that was your own.
So, as I said, because I was able to figure out how to, bring a lot of people to venues, that gave me a lot of leverage, for being able to, dictate a job that I was able to get from people who ran bars who weren't good at marketing. And needed help filling a place. So I started out at a bar in the East Village called Bar None, which unfortunately just closed. It was there 30 years. Yeah. And Bar None, like I said, I was working, organizing the liquor shelves, just helping in the nighttime, look for things that I can do more efficiently. Mm-hmm. Just little things like I noticed that the bartenders would turn their backs to start counting tips to make change, because they ran out of change, and things like that would cost them. I watched a drink here, a drink there, but over time in the restaurant industry, those pennies add up to dollars. Mm-hmm. So just little things like adding more banks to the registers, just watching the operations, I noticed how they can make a few $100 extra a night. Right. And that transforms to a lot of money. Right. So from there, he wanted me to become a manager of a bar, and That's not what I wanted. I wanted to own my own bars, and I wanted to do it for myself. But it was at that time where that concert went really bad. So I actually had to take a job at another bar from another mentor that I have. He had probably 10 places, and this was his one headache, where it was on 19th Street and 3rd Avenue. It was called Proof Bar and Lounge.
I know, I remember it.
So he basically gave me the keys because he knew that, I threw parties at his places before, right. And I would always fill them. And he said, here are the keys.
You wanted your marketing.
Do what you want. The place was doing around, at the time, like $15,000 a week, which is $750,000 a year. Yeah. And I just started implementing so many things, from change of staff, because the culture there was awful. That was another thing. If you have a place that's not doing well, unfortunately, there's a reason that everyone starts just being negative about it. So from that, handing me the keys, and I changed everything about the place, as far as from staff to management, implemented so many different marketing techniques, figured out, I wrote a little booklet at the time. I was, I think, 24 years old, of how to fill a venue, and I just wrote 50 different ways, for just from anything and everything I could think of how to get a place busy. And I tried every single thing. And, we went from $15,000 to $25,000 a week within a month. And from there, he made me a partner. So that's why I said, if you could make your own, if you could figure out how to bring a lot of business somewhere, you can pretty much write your own ticket. And, you can demand. If
you can get top line revenue, you can figure out the rest.
Yes. So you can pretty much, write your own way. You can basically, you have all the leverage. And that's what I did. I turned my knowledge of marketing and event planning and event production, and turned that into, leverage for me to then, which is what I really wanted to do, become a restaurant bar owner, and move my way up very fast.
Right.
So Proof was the first one. And then at that time, the owner of Webster Hall, I don't know if anyone knows Webster Hall. I'm so old. So Webster Hall is this huge nightclub that I was throwing events at. Saturday nights, we were doing 2,000 people a week there. And they lost all their business due to 9/11. I go way back. So 9/11, nightlife was pretty much done. Nobody wanted to go out and party. People did want to go out to the bars, and that's another lesson. Bars are good in good economy and bad economy.
Right.
Bars
People
are
drink
good
when they're happy, they drink when they're sad.
So bars were packed, but nightclubs were completely non-existent. So they didn't know what to do. They came to me, and I helped create a college program for them that made them the largest college event space, in New York City.
Doesn't Webster Hall still exist?
Yeah, they were purchased by I think not Clear Channel, one of those, Live Nation.
Live Nation.
And now it's a straight concert venue.
Yep.
But when they were a nightclub, I was running Saturday nights, and the owner took notice of how I could change, again, bring in the people when no one else could. And he offered me to be a partner at a bar that he secured across the street of Webster Hall, which was called Village Poorhouse. So Village Poorhouse, we created. I did it with a few of my friends from Proof, and the owner of Webster Hall. And then, we were, our claim to fame, it was the first beer bar with sports bar. So you talk about Italian and Jewish deli. We were the first.
Beer and sports seem to go together.
Yeah, 100 beers on tap with flat screen TVs.
Right.
And in 2000,
that still exists too, doesn't it? The Village Poorhouse.
We merged. We'll get to later, but we merged with the Ainsworth Group.
I know.
So that venue, that space turned to Ainsworth.
Okay.
So.
Yes, Alan.
Yeah. One of the things that we teach is marketing, as Rick was saying. Could you share some of your strategies for both, let's say, a restaurant, bar, and an event on you don't have to go through all 50, but
top two.
The top is data collection. So making sure that you I'll get into WeShield, but when I started a new company, WeShield, when the pandemic happened, every single person I met in that industry or even around that industry, I put them in my phone as a contact of that industry. So if you look at my phone, it says PPE1, PPE2. That's, personal protective equipment. That's what it stands for. And I'm up to PPE 5,000 in 2 years. So I have 5,000 contacts of just people that I met in PPE business. So in the restaurant world, it's actually easier. It's all about.
And now you have the technology for it.
It's all about your database. It's all about, social media. It used to be. Now social media is more about branding. But I think data collection and a good CRM, a way to analyze your data and analyze your customers is the most important thing. From that data, you get to do email blasts, text blasts. Back in the day, it was fax broadcasts where you just send a ton of faxes to people's things. And then secondly, another thing that was huge for us was old school guerrilla marketing. Just putting people with making the bartenders and the serving staff, paying them obviously to go out an hour before their shift to everywhere around locally and giving out a free drink or giving out some sort of special. But I think data collection is the number one thing. And like as an example, we have over 500,000 customers in our database that anytime we want to sell something, anytime we want to sell a New Year's ticket, an experiential ticket for a tuna carving event, we'll sell out in a minute because we have all that data. And something as simple as that, you can go to so many restaurants, one-off places of people who just wanted to get into the industry and they don't have their client data, and that's where they'll fail.
Yeah. Okay, so take us along. So you're doing your thing. COVID hits. Let's talk a little bit about Sushi Babu and what your plans were, and then how things changed.
So from Village Poorhouse, which was approximately 2007, I opened up another place called Sidebar, which was another sports bar in 15th and Irving around NYU. Then from there, I opened up a large nightclub event space called Hudson Terrace, which was a 13,000 square foot venue. And it was one of the most beautiful places that, forget about what I've done, but like what I've seen. Beautiful rooftop overlooking the Hudson River right across from the Intrepid. And, that process almost cost me everything again. From there, I started opening up more poorhouses, a concept called Little Town. And I then I knew this famous pitmaster from Texas named Mike Rodriguez, who he was the pitmaster at Salt Lick, which is one of the best barbecue spots in Texas. And I was going there for years because we met him at the Big Apple Barbecue. That's another thing, networking. I say contacts, but the way you get your contacts is by networking. So I'm mentioning all these people, and I met them because you put yourself out there, and you talk to as many people as possible, and you get their contact info. So I pitched him on an idea of opening up because I loved Chipotle, obviously at the time, when that was expanding like crazy. But I also love barbecue, and I wanted to marry the two. So we created something called Tres Carnes, which is a Texas smoked Mexican fare. So we had smokers in the venues, and we would smoke these amazing briskets and pork butt and chicken thighs, and we would put that in traditional Mexican vehicles like burritos and tacos and quesadillas, and it was a monster success. The first one was on 22nd and 6th, and this is another thing that you guys can learn, is not to expand too fast. We had the owner of Panda Express come in to check us out, the owner of Pret a Manger, the owners of other major food groups all checking us out because we had lines of 100+ people every single day at
I lived
lunchtime.
around the corner from there, I remember.
So you know, I'd let that go to my head. You know, I'm like, I have, like, the owner of Panda Express, who has a multi-billion-dollar company, says, we want to do this with you, but you need to get to like a number of places that we could see proof of concept. That word proof of concept killed me, because if I just kept one place, that would have been fine. But the entrepreneur in me did not allow that to happen, and I wound up opening up 5 places within 18 months, undercapitalized, over budget, without the right operations team. I picked the wrong places, high rents, and you know, within 18 months, we owed so much in rent to vendors, and it was a major bust. And I took something that was doing so well, and I listened to the noise of other people, and you know, that let me just think that, oh, I got to open up a million places at once, and just it failed miserably, and I wound up losing again all my money at the time, which was the 3rd time that happened at that time. And
The good stuff is coming, I promise.
yeah, the good guys win at the end. So I just swore to myself at that point, because rent at that point was my number one reason for failing. You know, there was a terrible winter with the coldest weather, and nobody was going out, and this food just didn't travel well. So takeout and delivery wasn't, you know, it was all about eating it within 5 minutes. So I just swore to myself that at that moment, which was around 2017, that I would never pay rent again.
Just before you go forward, does everyone understand why occupancy cost is so critical to your concept and its success? Does anyone want to tell me? You learned. Yes. It's fixed. You can't change it. So if you were doing $2 million a year and all of a sudden you're doing $1 million a year, and your occupancy cost was 10%, which is where you want it to be, let's say, if your revenue goes down by half, what happens to your occupancy cost?
Doubles.
So where's the math heads here?
Doubles.
It doubles. So now it's at 20%, and you're basically out of business. So even though there are bigger costs that you have in your P&L, occupancy is something that you cannot change without renegotiating, and oftentimes you can't renegotiate. And this is a big reason why so many places went out of business during COVID, because they can adjust their labor, they can adjust their cost of sales to a degree, but you can't adjust your occupancy costs. And that's how you go out of business that way.
So, perfect segue. Why I swore to myself to never pay rent again, which is a very weird concept in the restaurant industry, because everything is brick and mortar. So, you know, what landlords want to give up their space for free? I went to this place called Sushi on Jones, which is a 4-seat sushi restaurant on the sidewalk of Bowery and I think Gray Jones. And an old, an acquaintance sushi chef of mine opened up this place, and it was just such an amazing experience. And coming from the event world, and
I think it was a limited time thing too, right?
Yes. So it was a timed experience. So it's everyone familiar with omakase sushi? So omakase is it translates to trust me, or chef's choice in Japanese. Where you sit at a counter and the sushi chef gives you piece by piece, and you know, it's usually by the price. So like you spend $150 or $200, and they wind up serving you a prefix menu. So this was timed. So it wasn't about this $250 meal, which was usual omakase. This was about, you had 30 minutes, 30 minutes and $50. So it was just such an amazing experience, and the food was unbelievable. I saw the chef there, who I remembered from other places that he had, and I said, listen, you obviously know you have an awesome thing here, but if you ever need help expanding, you know, please contact me. And like he said before this interview, I was there, I was noticing some things that they weren't doing. They didn't have a liquor license. So liquor is 80% profit margin in the restaurant industry. So he didn't have liquor, and that was the major thing. So he came to me and said that, which happens a lot in the restaurant industry, he was breaking up with his partner. When things are good, everyone's having a great time making
Everyone's
money.
best friends.
But when things are bad, everyone blames each other, and shit just goes to, everything goes to shit. So
Hell in a handbag.
yes. So he contacted me, said, "Hey, you still interested? Me and my partner aren't seeing eye to eye with expanding this, and I would love to talk to you." So we met, and we came up. His name is Chef David Buhadana. So we decided to come up with a concept called Sushi by Boo, where his vision was to put this, like in Tokyo, in like little food stalls everywhere, whether it's airports or food halls. And we tried one at the Gansevoort Market, and it was an 8-seat counter. Again, $50, 30 minutes, 12 pieces of nigiri, which is the one piece of sushi, and no alcohol. So I was there, and we were, it's like, coming from a bar guy to not have alcohol at this unbelievable experience. It was terrible. So we would come in, I would make them hide sake underneath and give people Japanese whiskey secretly. And I said, this is pointless. Like, why are we even doing this? So that's when I decided, listen, I'm going to take over this expansion and come up with the idea to marry what you're doing, which is authentic, amazing, timed omakase experience for a very affordable price in the sushi world, and marry it with the cocktail program.
Yep.
And then on top of that, what makes this so cool is how it's so small. 8 seats is such a cool experience. Right. So that's when I said this should be speakeasies. This should only be speakeasies, and we want the worst space imaginable, the funkiest space possible, and we're not going to pay for it, because if someone gives us that crappy space, they'll be happy with getting anything whenever whenever we make money. So
did you work at percentage rent deals, or?
I actually did. So percentage rent deals is also just like paying rent, because if you don't do enough revenue, your labor and everything like that could still weigh you down.
Sure.
So I thought to come up with a completely risk-free model in the restaurant industry, which was, it's not, you don't really hear about that, because restaurants are 90% closed, so it's the riskiest business in the world. I decided to go at them with a complete 50-50 partnership. And usually when you go to somebody with a great concept and they need you, it's usually a management deal where they pay you no matter what the revenue is, no matter what the profit is, you're getting paid no matter what. So a management deal is ideal.
Sometimes off the top line, sometimes off the bottom line.
It's usually mostly off the top line and a little off the bottom line. So that for a restaurateur is the best deal possible, because you have no risk, but there's a big risk for the owner, the landlord.
Paying off top line.
So I went at it and saying, let's do this 50-50. So I don't get paid unless it does well, and that's a true partner.
You're sharing bottom line.
Correct. So we in our revenue, the expenses would come off the top, which is labor, cost of goods sold, supplies, and marketing, but no rent, no utilities, things that they were already paying in these spaces already. We would not pay, and that would be a part of that 50%
spaces they weren't using, so they had nothing to lose.
So the first place we did with this idea was a luggage storage room that's 225 square feet in the Sanctuary Hotel on 47th Street. And again, I knew them from networking. I didn't just call up anybody. I knew them and developed this contact over years. And they showed me this space that was below the sidewalk, and they used it for their luggage storage. And it was, the size of this corner of the room right there, 225 square feet. And we were able to build a small 8-seat sushi counter and a tiny little bar like this size, and the space does close to $2 million a year in revenue.
Crazy.
So, it obviously from there, we started. We found there are restaurants that have private party rooms, and they don't use them ever. So we took a private party room.
Yeah, so far this is before COVID even hit, right?
Yes. So this is 2018.
Yeah.
And we took a concierge desk at another hotel and closed it off. And we took the offices behind the concierge desk and turned that into a bar, a cocktail bar. And I went to Japan around that time after we did those few places. And what I noticed was, like, if you go to Koreatown on 32nd Street or 33rd Street, whatever, you notice that there's not enough real estate on the ground floor for them to keep opening up more places. And it's such a popular area. So what do? They build places up.
Oh, like in Japan.
Right.
Tokyo.
So Korea and Japan are, and I didn't really know this until I went to Tokyo, because I wanted to.
Everything goes up.
I wanted to experience what we're doing in New York, which was, I have such a passion for sushi. The name of my marketing company in college was called Disco Sushi, because the nightclubs, and I love sushi. So I went to Tokyo to really study up on what I was doing and see the vendors that we're purchasing our fish from. And I noticed that there's so many concepts that are on the 5th floor. The coolest places were on the 6th floor, the 7th floor. So my buddy from college owned a hotel on 32 East 32nd Street. And that's another good point. Keep your friends that you make, because you just never know when
you're gonna need them.
You're gonna need them. But like this guy, I knew him for so many years, and he was in the real estate market, and he had some hotels. And I just came back from Japan. He showed me around the hotel, and he showed me a hotel room. And he said, "What can we do with those hotel room? Is a tiny 150-foot room, but with 300 square foot balcony." So the balcony was larger than the room, like this amazing balcony. And I told him, let's put a sushi bar in this hotel room, like a full service restaurant inside the hotel room. So that we wound up doing, and it was the first ever in the world hotel room turned into a restaurant. And it's since then, that's called Sushi Suite. Mm-hmm. And since then we've opened up numerous ones. Sushi Suite in Chicago. We had a Sushi Suite in the Versace Mansion in Miami Beach. Mm-hmm. We're doing one, Sushi Baibu and Sushi Suite we're trying to do in all major cities.
Mm-hmm. So how many do you have to date?
12.
Okay. And how many in the works?
15 next year.
Pretty cool.
So yeah.
So I know, because this is the way we met, but you kind of did another pivot and got into the plant-based world. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, you obviously see the craze over plant-based and
Sure.
how sustainable for the future of this world is in plant-based foods. And you're going to run out of other foods the way that we're going. So I took a notice to that, and I wanted to get into that. And at that point, when I started looking into the vegan world, I was now more of an angel investor. So I had a friend of mine who his kids and my kids are at the same Hebrew school.
Ross,
yeah. And he pitched me on this idea of, basically, it's not, if you're familiar with ghost kitchens, because people don't want to pay these exorbitant rents, they make up these fake restaurants inside a kitchen with numerous fake menus that they put on Seamless, and all they do is take out delivery. But his idea was to take underutilized space in kitchens and offer them his recipes and product to cook certain vegan menus. So basically like a ghost franchise, a virtual franchise model. I guess Mr. Beast is a good example. Mr. Beast has a burger that you can basically you can buy the burger and they whatever.
Sell it out of your own venue.
Yeah. So this is a virtual franchise model for the vegan industry, and coming from Sushi Baibu and Sushi Suite of taking underutilized space and turning it into awesome restaurants and not paying rent. This was right up my alley with taking underutilized kitchen space and selling them a product that they fulfill, sending them the customer from the marketing that you do, and you not having any risk again. So I made an investment into that, and I also came up with the idea of having, because every city needs a commissary, and that's another terrible word in the restaurant industry. If you have to open up a commissary, there's going to be a good chance that that's going to bring you down in your whole empire.
It could be expense without revenue.
It's all expense and no revenue. So if you have one restaurant that's not doing well and not paying its way into the commissary, that commissary is going to now start taking down your good place. So I came up with the idea of, based on this experience that I had of making our commissary into every city an anchor vegan bar restaurant that we can get for free from landlords who love our sushi concept. So I'm piggybacking off of one idea and utilizing it to now, start this other company.
Yeah.
So our first plant bar, which you can go to on 29th and Broadway, has all of our different vegan brands, and we created a vegan omakase experience,
which I thought was really cool.
Called omakase.
Yeah, the name is great.
Okay.
It's
perfect
name.
Again, to not pay rent is very, very difficult, because you have to have something the landlord needs, you have to have something the hotel needs, and that takes a long time to do. It takes a lot of failures to get there.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say, move up in a company, a company that you like what you see, move up, make a difference, and try to move up as much as possible to make your own name.
Right.
And
pick up contacts along the way.
Yes, pick up contacts along the way. I've seen at least 10 of my chefs open up their own little sushi spots, mostly in the city, Philly, Jersey, and I think it's flattery, and I wish that everyone the best. But those chefs did exactly what I said. They went just like I did a proof. I had the contacts, I made them, I filled a place, and I figured out what was valuable to someone else, and then I went and I was able to do it on my own.
You may want to explain what omakase it is, because it might not be obvious to everybody, but it's a cool idea, and it ties in your whole sushi experience.
So just like omakase, where it's small, for us, Sushi by Boo is 8-seat counter, timed experience, price fix. We did something in the vegan world called omakase seed, plant-based. Also 8 seats and $65 for a 15-course vegan experience that's timed to 75 minutes. So the key is, we're not really opening up restaurants, we're opening up ticketed experiences.
Right.
So it's kind of like we're selling a Broadway show, if you will. And that was a big thing for us to move away from the traditional restaurants where you're just hoping to fill one seating, but you don't really know, how many people are going to come. There's going to be a lot of walk-ups. With this, we know exactly how many people are coming every single day of the week. We can staff properly. We
get the right amount of product.
Yeah.
So, but I guess what you didn't mention is that the omakase is like omakase, meaning it's basically sushi without any fish. So it's all plant-based, and it tastes a lot like omakase. It's really pretty incredible. It's interesting. Talk about how your day-to-day role has changed over the years, and what is it that you do today, like from a day-to-day perspective.
So I've never been an office person. I've never sat, I've had an office. I've had plenty of offices in my career, in my company with a desk. I've never used them. I never go to them. I just pretty much roam the earth, go to meetings. My day-to-day is 20 hours a day on my cell phone. Just, talking to, whether it's my executives or mostly business development or, networking. And that's not changed for me in decades. It's I guess there's a big ADHD factor to that of just not being able to sit. Hence, the entrepreneur who doesn't want to open up one place, he wants to open up 55. The day-to-day is just on my phone, talking about the next deals, making sure the things that I see when I go to my places are being adjusted, that need adjustment. And, just a lot of business development.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned prior, but talk about partners and pros, cons. Do you have them today? And
Yes, I mean, every single one of my business, and it's just funny in the business world, but like in the restaurant world, everyone has partners.
for the most part.
You need a lot of help in this industry. It's harder than brain surgery than being a neurosurgeon. So I've had many partners. Not even you're definitely going to have investors, but I'm talking partners, working partners,
Right, operating partners.
and they just like friends. Unfortunately, partners come and go. Just make sure you have good contracts in the beginning. Contracts are going to be awkward and annoying to figure out in the beginning, but get it all out of the way. And that's a good way to talk to your partner about it and be like, hopefully we'll never need this contract, but if we do.
And you will.
Yeah. So contracts are key to good and bad partners. I've had many of them, and most usually don't work out, unfortunately.
Yeah, that includes your operating agreement too. If you guys don't know what an operating agreement is, you will learn it soon. But it's one of those things you'd love to put it in a desk, close the drawer, and never look at it again. But oftentimes you do have to refer to it, and what it says is really important.
It spells out every single thing about your company, from how much expenses your partner can approve without your permission.
Right.
To salaries that you're going to be getting and not take more, to changing the contract and how many people need to agree to it. Yeah.
Voting rights. Yep. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about investment. How have you gotten investment as you've needed it, and difficult, easy?
So investors come when they see something great that you're doing. So for me, I was developing a lot of networking, a lot of people in my network via the parties originally. People that we were throwing these big events, having a great time together, and just networking. And from that, I found key working partners who all saved up also from whether it was bartending at the bars that I worked at or throwing parties with me, and we all together came and did the first place of Poorhouse with the Webster Hall people. And then from that, having the best sports bar on, in the area, some can argue in the city, that brought out major clients, suit and ties, people celebrating happy hours, alumni for sports, just people from all walks of life who wanted to be a bar owner.
Right.
So you get investors by giving people an amazing experience, showing people an amazing time, being hospitable,
right.
Giving the best customer service that you possibly can. Just that will make people drawn to you, and they're going to want to do things with you and invest with you.
Yeah.
And
So when you started Sushi by Boo, did you have to go out there and raise funds?
No, because part of the plan of never paying rent again was also telling the hotel that needed us to put up the money for building us out. So we don't really require a lot of money.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, I was looking at your website while you're talking. One place looks like a variation on the theme that is interesting. It's the one in Fort Lauderdale. It says it's hidden within Salt 7, one of the hottest restaurants on Solo. So this is yet another good theme. This is an operating restaurant that's doing well otherwise. And I get in there.
Same situation about what I said, like about a private party room. So they have a private party room that they were not maximizing. It's underutilized. It's only being used once a week. So they came and experienced Sushi by Boo at another city that we had, loved it so much that instead of having 1 day a week parties, now they have 7 days a week of parties at this place. So that was just for us, offices, private party rooms and restaurants, basements, second floor storage areas just are great opportunities for us to develop these concepts. Whether it's within, ideally, it should be, we'd like to be in hotels, because for us, for a restaurant, they live and die based on the revenue. For a hotel, they live and die based on the amenities, of getting more people if you have good amenities. So for us, we're an amenity to their hotel guests, having this amazing food and beverage experience, this amazing PR and marketing draws more people to their hotels. So.
Okay, so I was going to say coming out of COVID, we're still not out of COVID. So trying to come out of COVID. What are your daily pressures? What kind of things are you dealing with right now to kind of keep things rolling along?
So I had around 25 places when COVID hit, and the day that they closed the world, I had 0 places, and that was the first time in my life. There were other times where I failed. I lost everything.
Hotels shut down.
Yeah, everything shut down. Every single thing shut down. And the lesson learned from COVID was all the places that I was paying rent on closed forever. Hudson Terrace, Sidebar, numerous places that I had that were staples in New York City, all closed forever. But the places that I was not paying rent on, if the venue that had me in there closed, I didn't take a loss. Sure. Or if the venue, reopened, I reopened up with them with again, no money outlay. So when COVID hit, that was the first time in my life where, before I knew I was going to bounce back and just you have a feeling when you have failures and, you're just going to learn from that experience. But this was a government forced shutdown that I never, like you see in movies, this is real life though now. And I had nothing, like really nothing. My wife is a dentist, her practice had to close, non-essential surgeries. So we literally had nothing. And that was the first time in my life I actually looked and went on unemployment, only 2 years ago. And, it was definitely a rough time to go from having a $50+ million a year revenue company to 0 in a matter of hours.
Yeah, crazy.
And to not know what the future is going to bring. Like it just, all of us restaurateurs were like, they're not going to shut down. They're not going to shut down. And then slowly but surely, every day it was 25%, then 50%. Then people just stopped coming because they were so scared. And from there, there was a good month of me thinking that, just like many other people, that I was a day trader on Robinhood, just trading stock, thinking that I was going to make a lot of money there. Yeah. Didn't work out. Yeah. And then a month into it, the pandemic was still obviously a terrible thing for a couple of years, but a month into the pandemic was just that when panic was setting, and the supply chain was completely broken for everything. And friends of mine, investors of mine, and contacts of mine, from years of the bar and restaurant world, were contacting me saying, hey, can you help me get masks? Can you help me get gloves and gowns? I have a hospital that I'm running that we can't, people are dying because we don't have the proper materials. I have a nursing home that we don't have gloves for. So, I do what I do best, and I put on my hustling hat instead of my entrepreneur hat, and I started figuring out what contacts I had to get supply. I had the contacts, for everyone had contacts for demand. Everyone knew someone who needed PPE, and so I figured out supply, which was the impossible part, from my network. And it turns out in my network, I had manufacturers from China that I was able to create gloves instead of them making T-shirts and clocks for Walmart. Now they're making gloves and masks and other things. And we took the knowledge that we had with marketing and we just figured out a way to find the supply and then get the word out to all the people that needed it. And that saved my business career. Yeah. And now I have a medical supply company that's doing very well, which now allows me to get back to the restaurant industry as a passion project.
Okay, well, okay, good segue. So where do you see the restaurant business going? Both locally and maybe, nationally as
So
well.
I mean, I saw the retail apocalypse happening. I sit on the board of Manhattan Chamber of Commerce for a long time, and the nightlife, hospitality, and restaurant
Hospitality Alliance.
hospitality alliance and the restaurant. Oh my God, New York State Restaurant Association.
I was on that board as well.
So whether I'm involved or I was on the board, you see the writing on the wall. You saw the writing on the wall around a decade ago, where these popular urban centers like New York City and Los Angeles and Chicago were all, landlords were all charging too much. Internet was chipping away all the retail, and you saw it happening where brick and mortars, whether it was retail or restaurants, just with the as you said, the cost, the fixed costs,
Occupancy cost.
the occupancy costs were killer, and the competition made your revenue start to dip. And then add on all these seamless companies that are chipping away and taking a huge chunk of your revenue, and add on food trucks.
Not to mention using your data, going back to what you were saying in the first place.
Correct. They're
which
taking your
becomes the most
customers
valuable thing.
and then selling your data to another restaurant to then sell them, instead of your tacos, now someone else is buying sushi. Your clients are now getting something else from them. And then add food trucks that don't pay rent and sit outside your place. And add every single competing place that took your idea. So I saw that coming, and I saw that restaurants are going to be in for a really bad time, even before leading up to COVID, which is why I pivoted to non-rented experiential micro concepts. I see with COVID, the world has changed in that, unfortunately, around 25% of restaurants never reopened. So as long as the people move back to a city, and in New York City, most of the people move back, however, the offices have not come back. So that's why you'll see in pockets of the city, like Midtown and FIDI around here, so many places closed still. And I see that happening all across the country, and just new areas. You have to just really understand the areas that you're looking at, and you have to look at areas that have everything there. Like, I've always looked for areas that have tourists, business, and residential. All three, not just residential, because those people are transient. There's no lunch crowd. Not just tourists, because those people just have a really small attention span. You have to fight every single day for a new client. And not just business, because there's no weekend business. So Midtown, as an example, you see all these places. FIDI, as an example, all these places are closed on the weekends. You can't make.
And they don't open late either.
Yes, they're closed after 6 o'clock. So for me, I always wanted to make sure that we were not looking for. We didn't want to be a trailblazer and open up a place in a market that we were going to be the first and the anchor. We wanted there to be other anchors. We wanted there to be people, and then to use our skill in marketing to attract them to come to our business. So I see that the neighborhoods, areas, you have to be very careful with where you want to do your business, because of the world that has changed.
It comes down to a lot of marketing.
Your occupancy costs are the killer of most restaurants. So, you have to be very careful. You're not going to be able to, if you want to do a concept, you're not going to be able to find a place that is going to give you free rent. It's just not going to happen. You have to work your way up to that. But if you have a great concept and you have, there are food courts, food halls that are busy 7 days a week, and that's a low occupancy cost that you might be able to introduce your brand.
Good proof of concept. Way to go.
And so I do see the places that have survived COVID in areas where people have moved back are thriving right now, because 25% of the places in that area never reopened. So those places are going to be okay, but now getting new places to come in and take that risk and put in $500,000 or $1 million to open up a new restaurant after COVID happened, That's not going to happen nearly as much as was happening before. The investment world is not just giving money, let alone look at the economy. So you don't really have these angel investors that are going to just, or these investment banks that are just going to throw money at you for any old concept that you have. So I see there being a lot of empty space in these urban, dense cities for a while now, until the landlords start becoming creative. So like I became creative to make a risk-free business. Landlords now have to get creative to attract new businesses. So you will see a lot of percentage rent deals being talked about now.
Okay, perfect segue, maybe a little redundant, but so you've got a room full of budding entrepreneurs here. What's the best advice you can give them?
The best advice I can give an entrepreneur is to find a good job with good pay, that you can develop your own thing while you are doing it with the comfort, and the safety net of a good salary and good compensation. So, your dreams don't have to stop when you work for someone else. That safety net of having an income while you work on your other thing is what can make you be successful. If you just stop what you're doing without money in the bank.
Wish you would have told me that 20 years ago.
I mean, a lot of people just think, oh my God, I'm going to be a world traveler and create a food blog and then, and then open up a restaurant without any money in the bank. You gotta save money. You gotta have a safety net. And you'll find at your job that you'll see potential investors there who will then make your dream come true about opening up a place.
Okay. Great. Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
So you love sushi. Have you ever been to a sushi house?
Yeah.
I was just there recently.
That's an example of a very, very, very expensive omakase place. And
that's where it's going, as you know. It's like that high-end sushi.
Right, and we wanted to be the opposite.
Right.
And our motto is sushi for me. So it's, we want to serve just like any restaurant. It's all about real estate. It's all about how much time you take up at a table and how fast you can turn a table. Sushi Naz hardly turns their seats probably like
Twice a night.
So they have to charge, at least $250.
6:30 and 9 o'clock.
So they have to make at least $250 a seat. So for me to do $500 a seat over the course of the night, I'm turning it 8 times. So there's a good example of what I don't want to be.
Right. And there's a lot of those around
because you have a Sushi Naz,
Yeah. It's like one person is about 400-600 per course.
Yeah.
Right.
And the most 12-course meals, I think, $750 per person. And then you have to put that at least 3 months in advance.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
Sushi Naz is not.
Sushi Naz also has a famous chef.
Yeah.
So like.
Came from the trip.
Correct. So if that chef leaves, then what are you?
Yeah, you definitely have that risk as well. Yes.
I thought it was really cool, the whole idea of using the hotel spaces and other bar spaces, and going on what you said about the pandemic and how that's affected offices and how people are working from home more, and a lot of companies aren't even considering bringing people back into offices. Have you considered possibly using like your hotel and bar idea to like do it in like office?
We're inside an office was always the idea at first. Like I said, in Tokyo, that's where the coolest places are, on the 3rd floor in what used to be an office. So yes, before COVID though, every office was rented. Now, we're talking with, as an example, the Prudential Tower in Chicago, the Willis Tower in Chicago, 1500 Market, Philadelphia is this huge office building where we're talking about putting in an office. So yes, that's the great part about this. It's there's an infinite amount of underutilized space.
So I assume, I actually should have asked this earlier, but so I'm assuming you go through all the food safety things that you have to put in the
No,
sinks.
we don't
and
care about that.
You don't,
Yes. So the hotel room that we did took us 9 months to open. So that's a big barrier of
yeah, because
entry.
there's still some work
So
to
we
be
had
done.
we had to on the plans turn a hotel room with that kind of use. It's a lot of stupid buildings department jargon.
Yeah,
But
sure.
the occupancy was hotel. So to turn that into food and beverage is a big deal.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Can you speak to, or offer your perspective on like identifying a target market? Because you mentioned that you want to find an area that has like tourist, residential, and business. So when you're like opening new ventures, like, do you look for like a very specific target market, or are you really going like pretty broad?
So we created a list of like top tier markets, and there's at least 50 of them. There's so many top tier markets, as close to here, New York City, there's God knows how many amazing neighborhoods. New Jersey has Hoboken and Jersey City, which has all your things that I said. There's so many other cities like that, right? So before you get to second tier markets of worrying about where there's not all three of those, you'll be busy for the rest of your life with the areas that have all three of those things. We're opening up in New York City within 6 blocks of each other, sushi bars. Like, so 21st and Broadway is opening up in a couple weeks, 23rd and 7th Avenue. I would do Union Square Place, which I'm looking for right now. So, there are so many top tier markets that have all three of those things, that you'll be busy just trying to open up in those places.
How are you training all these people to cut sushi?
I want to open up a program here to create future chefs for my
There you go.
guaranteed,
Okay. We'll talk about
guaranteed
that.
employment.
There you go.
So, like
Okay.
Miami, as an example, has so many areas that have all three, whether it's South Beach or Wynwood or Design District or Sunny Isles. There are so many great areas in this country that have neighborhoods and cities that have tourists, business, and residential.
So you don't find like things you need to.
No.
Yes.
Apart from your manufacturing business in China, are all your like hotels and restaurants, are they all in the US, or do you have any overseas?
We were offered deals, like we were offered a deal to open up in Dubai and London, and I'm trying to not do the Trace Carnes thing again, where, so right now I'm only focused on opening up in regions that I can control, that I can get on a plane and be an hour away, So we're going to grow around Illinois, we're going to grow around Florida, and we're going to grow around New York at first. We are, one of my business partners lives in Puerto Rico, so we're opening up numerous places there, which was more of a dream of mine, because I used to, my first concert for 50 Cent happened to be in Puerto Rico. I used to live there. So we're opening up several places there. But we're going to be strategic about it so that we can hire the right people to then expand properly and not just do crazy one-offs like, for vanity. Texas will be one of the next ones, and California will probably be one of the last ones. A, because of how far away it is, and B, because of how regulations, how terrible they are for restaurants.
Last question. Alan?
Yeah.
We'll go
In
on.
terms of the new restaurant model, almost flipping what you're saying, somebody opening a restaurant now has to really think of a lot of multiple streams of income. You can't just say breakfast and lunch, and really utilizing your space 24/7 if possible. So talk a little bit about some creative ways that an operator now can look at their space, not just as a restaurant, but a full service way of generating.
All right, so that's a great point. Before the pandemic, and for me, it was identifying different crowds to come in at different times. and to utilize your space as much as possible. So the happy hour crowd, the suit and ties, the weekend crowd was the birthday parties and bachelor parties. The lunch crowd was the local construction guys. Like it was all about finding different groups of people to fill up your different times. Like you just said, now it's about figuring out how many different businesses you can put in a business. So that's where we come in, and a restaurant should be looking for people like us to take space like a private party room and turn it into this experience that has nothing to do with them, that will pay them rent, so they could pay the landlord rent, or selling a piece of their kitchen to a caterer, as an example. On the weekend days, selling it to a yoga instructor who wants to rent out your space. You have to really figure out ways how to rent out your space, how to create more revenue, because that rent check is due no matter what every single month. And if you miss a month, it starts compiling on top of each other, and then you'll be closed within 3 to 6 months of things going bad. You can be closed like that. So you do have to figure out all these different ways how to generate revenue. And you can't take the easy way